My parents hijacked every one of my birthdays for my little brother, bought him a car at 12, and laughed when I begged for college help. So, I live-streamed their slap, let Grandpa rip them out of the will, and turned their golden child's poison plot into a prison sentence, pulling an Uno reverse in the most devastating way possible. My parents were always hard on me, but I thought they still loved me until my little brother Oscar was born, because our upbringing was like a night and day difference. On my 8th birthday, my parents used the day to celebrate Oscar instead, not because his birthday coincided, but because he simply deserved it. And don't get me wrong, I loved him. Heck, he was the cutest little bean in the entire world. But in the back of my mind, I'd always be thinking, don't I deserve it too? It wasn't until I turned 16 that I finally said something, because for my birthday, they gave Oscar a car. He was literally 12 and couldn't even drive yet. I asked them why they didn't get me anything, and they said, Oscar's happiness should be enough of a gift for me. I just sighed. And that's when I knew I had to give up on my dream of having loving parents. And since they didn't give me jack shit for my entire life, I thought when I got accepted into college, I could cash in the lack of parenting for one favor, paying 20% of my college fees, because even that was enough to stop me from feeling like I was drowning in loan debt. My mom just burst out laughing, hitting her hand against the table so hard I thought it would bruise. Son, fuck off and figure it out, my dad said with a smirk on his face. I tried to convince myself that it didn't hurt anymore, but it did. I don't even know why I kept visiting them every holiday season, but I did. I even taught Oscar how to drive in the car that should have been mine, and I watched as every Christmas he opened the gifts I never had. But it wasn't until I turned 22 that I finally snapped, because that was when Oscar got his college acceptance letter to the local community college. My parents threw him a party, and I attended to show my support. Towards the end, my dad tapped on his champagne glass to make a toast. He started off with how Oscar was the brilliant son they never had. Ouch! And just as I was about to walk away and drive home, they continued. My dad proudly stated that he and my mom were going to cover all his tuition fees, and even bought him a small house so he could move out and get the full college experience. My eyes widened so much I thought my eyelids were about to split in two. As soon as the guests started to file out, I pulled my entire family into a room upstairs. What the actual fuck? I screamed with my phone filming the whole thing in the corner. My mom slapped me across the face. It wasn't hard, but her ring scratched my cheek, and there was blood pouring out. You can never be happy for anyone, can you? She said, her voice sharp. I told you we shouldn't have invited him, my dad sighed. I glanced over to Oscar, whose eyes were glued to the ground. As soon as they left, I locked the door and posted the clip on every platform I could find. And after 2 hours, when no one had seen it, I tagged my entire family in the comments on Instagram. LL. And I guess all the champagne made me sleepy, because I ended up falling asleep on the bathroom floor. I woke up at 3 a.m. to a throbbing hangover, and my parents banging on the door to let them in. We fucking hate you, my parents screamed over and over again in unison. I pretended to still be asleep, and they eventually lost their breath and gave up. The next morning, the family group chat was popping off. Some were arguing about how I deserved to be hit. Others said I was a disgrace. It was like the comment section of those alpha male podcast clip videos on TikTok. In any case, everyone decided it was best to discuss it in person. So, the next morning, we went to Oscar's favorite restaurant. It was my parents, Oscar, both sets of grandparents, and 3 aunts. The conversation shifted from discussing the weather to my parents' parenting method in a matter of minutes. I didn't say much, just let my grandparents on my dad's side stick up for me. And suddenly, after 2 hours of arguing, my parents finally apologized. You see, my grandparents had threatened to take them out of the will if they didn't start treating me like their son. My mom said sorry through gritted teeth, followed by a robotic explanation of how she should have been better as the adult in the situation. Meanwhile, my dad just shrugged his shoulders and said, I agree with your mom. All very forced, and I guess my grandparents noticed because they told me I could visit them instead of my parents whenever I came home for the holidays. I felt my face light up when they said that, and moved in that very same day. When all was said and done, they sat me down on the couch and told me something that still makes me smile to this day. We're still taking your parents out of the will. We just wanted you to get the apology you deserved. For the first time in years, I laughed a real laugh, and I knew all the pain was finally over. Or at least I thought it was. The next morning, I was speeding to drive my grandma to the hospital. Turns out someone had poured laxative powder into her food the day before. And if we had gotten to the hospital just 4 hours later, she wouldn't have made it. And somehow I knew Oscar was the one behind it. I sat in the hospital waiting room, my hands still shaking from the drive. The doctors had rushed Grandma into intensive care, and all I could do was pace back and forth, replaying everything in my mind. The family meeting at Oscar's favorite restaurant, the forced apologies, the laxative powder that nearly killed my grandmother. My phone buzzed with messages from the family group chat, but I couldn't bring myself to look. Not yet. Instead, I kept thinking about Oscar's behavior at the restaurant, how he barely touched his food, how he kept glancing at Grandma's plate, how he'd offered to refill her water glass 3 times. The sliding doors opened, and my grandfather rushed in, still in his pajamas. His face was pale, and I could see he'd been crying. He pulled me into a tight hug, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. When the doctor finally came out, she explained that Grandma's system had been overwhelmed by an extreme dose of laxatives. They'd managed to stabilize her, but she was severely dehydrated, and her electrolyte balance was dangerously off. If we'd waited any longer, her heart could have given out. Grandpa's jaw clenched when he heard this. He turned to me with a look I'd never seen before, pure rage mixed with determination. He asked me to tell him exactly what happened at the restaurant, every single detail. I walked him through it all. How Oscar had insisted on sitting next to Grandma, how he'd been unusually attentive, constantly adjusting her napkin and moving her water glass, how he'd gone to the bathroom right after the food arrived and came back just as everyone started eating. My grandfather listened in silence, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrest of his chair. When I finished, he stood up slowly and pulled out his phone. He made 3 calls, the first to his lawyer, the second to a private investigator he knew from his business days, the third to the restaurant, requesting they preserve any security footage from yesterday. Over the next few hours, family members trickled into the hospital. My parents arrived with Oscar, acting concerned and confused. My mother rushed over to me, asking what happened in her fake worried voice. I just stared at her, remembering how she'd slapped me just days ago. Oscar hung back near the door, his hands in his pockets. He kept checking his phone and glancing at the exit. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away and started talking to one of our aunts about school. The doctor allowed us to see Grandma in shifts. When it was my turn, I found her awake but weak, hooked up to multiple IVs. She squeezed my hand when I sat down beside her bed. She whispered that she remembered feeling strange shortly after eating at the restaurant. The cramping had started on the drive home, getting progressively worse through the night. She'd been too embarrassed to wake anyone until the pain became unbearable. I stayed with her until visiting hours ended, then headed back to my grandparents' house. Grandpa was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a laptop and several printed documents. The private investigator had been busy. He showed me the restaurant security footage on his laptop. The quality wasn't great, but you could clearly see Oscar getting up from the table and walking toward the bathroom. But instead of going inside, he ducked into the kitchen area for about 30 seconds before returning to our table. My grandfather had also gotten the restaurant to check their inventory. They were missing a large container of industrial-strength laxative powder used for clearing grease traps, the same type the hospital had identified in Grandma's system. We both knew what this meant, but proving it would be another matter. Oscar had been careful. No direct footage of him taking anything or putting it in the food, just circumstantial evidence that wouldn't hold up anywhere official. The next morning, I decided to handle things differently. Instead of confronting Oscar directly, I started paying closer attention to his behavior. I installed a discreet security camera in the hallway outside Grandma's room at the house, hidden inside an old smoke detector. I also started documenting everything. Every time Oscar visited, every strange question he asked about Grandma's health, every time he offered to help with her medications or meals. The pattern became clear. Within days, Oscar would show up unannounced, always when he thought I wasn't home. He'd ask detailed questions about Grandma's recovery, her medication schedule, when she'd be alone. He'd offer to pick up her prescriptions or bring her special meals to help her recover. My parents, predictably, thought I was being paranoid when I mentioned Oscar's strange behavior. My mother actually laughed, saying I was jealous that Oscar was being a caring grandson. My father accused me of trying to turn the family against Oscar because of the college money situation. But I wasn't the only one who noticed. Grandpa had been watching too, and he'd seen enough. He changed all the locks on the house and installed a comprehensive security system. He also hired a part-time nurse to stay with Grandma during the day, someone who would carefully monitor everything she ate or drank. That's when the harassment started. Anonymous notes began appearing under Grandma's bedroom door. Crude messages saying she was going to die soon, that she should have minded her own business, that old people like her were better off gone. The handwriting was disguised, but the timing was suspicious. They only appeared on days when Oscar had visited. I collected each note, storing them in a folder along with the dates and times they were found. Then Grandma's medications started going missing. First just 1 or 2 pills, then entire bottles. The nurse reported that someone had been in the medicine cabinet despite the new locks. Oscar was conveniently always around when these incidents occurred, always the first to offer to help look for the missing medications. I knew I needed more concrete evidence, so I upgraded the hidden camera in the hallway to one with better resolution and night vision. I also placed one in Grandma's room, carefully hidden in a bookshelf where it could see both the door and her bedside table. 3 days later, I had what I needed. The footage showed Oscar sneaking into the house at 3 a.m., using a key he must have copied before we changed the locks. He went straight to Grandma's room and stood over her bed for several minutes, just watching her sleep. Then he pulled something from his pocket and started mixing it into the water glass on her nightstand. I made multiple copies of the footage immediately, one on my laptop, one on an external drive, one uploaded to a secure cloud server. I wasn't taking any chances this time, but when I showed the footage to my parents and some other family members, Oscar had already prepared his defense. He claimed I had deep-faked the video out of jealousy, that I was trying to frame him because I couldn't handle him being the favorite child. He was good, really good. He broke down crying, saying he loved Grandma and would never hurt her. He accused me of being mentally unstable, of needing professional help. He even suggested that maybe I was the one who had poisoned Grandma and was now trying to pin it on him. Some family members believed him. They pointed out how tech-savvy I was, how I'd already posted one video, trying to make the family look bad. My aunt said it was suspicious that I was the one who'd found Grandma sick, that I was the one who'd driven her to the hospital. The family was splitting down the middle. Those who'd always favored Oscar and my parents sided with them. Those who'd seen through the favoritism over the years sided with me and my grandparents. But Grandma herself never wavered. Despite her weakness, she spoke up at every family meeting, insisting that something was wrong with Oscar, that she could feel it in her bones. Her voice carried weight, but her frailty made others dismiss her concerns as confusion from her illness. I realized I needed to change tactics. If confrontation wasn't working, maybe infiltration would. So, I pretended to have a change of heart. I apologized to Oscar privately, saying I'd been stressed and paranoid from everything that had happened. I told him I wanted to repair our relationship, that brothers should stick together. Oscar was suspicious at first, but his ego won out. He'd always enjoyed having power over me, and my apparent submission fed into that. Slowly, he started to let his guard down around me. I began visiting him at the house my parents had bought him. We'd hang out, play video games, talk about college. I acted like the supportive older brother I'd always tried to be, pushing down my disgust every time he smiled that fake smile. It took weeks, but eventually Oscar started to trust me enough to leave me alone in his house. That's when I found them, the journals hidden in a lockbox under his bed, documenting years of manipulation and planning. The entries went back to when he was just 10 years old, detailed notes about how to manipulate our parents, how to turn them against me, how to ensure he got everything while I got nothing. There were psychological manipulation techniques he'd researched, strategies for gaslighting, methods for making someone look crazy. The most recent entries were about Grandma, how she'd threatened his position by standing up for me, how she needed to be removed from the equation. There were research notes about various poisons, their effects, how to administer them without detection. I photographed every single page, making sure the images were clear and legible. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I couldn't take the journals themselves. Not yet. I needed to present this evidence in a way that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I spent the next week preparing. I made multiple copies of everything, sent some to my grandfather's lawyer, uploaded others to secure servers. I also reached out to a handwriting expert to verify that the journals were indeed in Oscar's writing. When I was ready, I called a family meeting. Everyone was there, including Oscar and my parents. I'd asked my grandfather to lead the meeting, giving him all the evidence to present. The room was tense as Grandpa laid out everything methodically: the security footage, the missing medications, the threatening notes, and finally the journal entries. He'd brought printed copies for everyone to see, complete with the handwriting expert's analysis. Oscar's reaction was immediate and extreme. He jumped up, screaming that I'd planted everything, that I'd broken into his house and forged the journals. He accused me of being obsessed with him, of trying to destroy his life out of jealousy. But cracks were starting to show in his performance. His story kept changing. First, he said the journals didn't exist. Then he said they were private creative writing exercises. Then he claimed I'd written them and planted them in his room. My parents tried to defend him, but even they were struggling. The evidence was overwhelming, and Oscar's increasingly frantic denials were making things worse. When Grandpa showed a journal entry where Oscar had written about manipulating our parents into buying him the car on my 16th birthday, my mother's face went white. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother stared at the journal entry, her hands trembling as she read Oscar's own words, describing how he'd convinced them I didn't deserve a birthday gift, how he'd planted the idea that his happiness should be enough for me. Oscar's face had gone from red to pale. He grabbed for the papers, trying to snatch them away, but my grandfather held them out of reach. That's when Oscar turned to our parents, his voice taking on that little boy quality he'd perfected over the years. He told them I must have been planning this for months, that I'd studied his handwriting and practiced copying it. He even suggested I drugged him to get into his house, that I was dangerous and needed to be kept away from the family. My father stood up, torn between defending his golden child and processing the mounting evidence. He demanded to see the original journals, not just photos. When I explained I'd left them in Oscar's house to avoid accusations of theft, he seized on this as proof of my deception. The meeting devolved into chaos. My aunts were arguing among themselves, some saying the evidence was too convenient, others pointing out Oscar's contradictory explanations. My maternal grandparents, who'd always been distant, suggested we needed a family therapist to sort through these delusions. But Grandma's voice cut through the noise. Despite her weakness, she spoke with clarity about the fear she'd felt waking up to find Oscar standing over her bed, about how her water had tasted strange that night, about the cruel notes that appeared under her door, always in Oscar's favorite blue ink. Oscar's mask slipped for just a moment. A flash of pure rage crossed his face before he composed himself and began crying again. He ran to our mother, burying his face in her shoulder, sobbing about how I'd turned everyone against him. The meeting ended without resolution. My parents left with Oscar, my mother shooting me a look of pure hatred. My aunts departed in separate cars, the family divide growing wider. Only my paternal grandparents remained, Grandpa's jaw set in determination. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the locks, peering out windows, jumping at every sound. Around 2:00 a.m., I heard something outside. Through the bedroom window, I saw Oscar's car parked down the street, just sitting there with the engine running. I woke my grandfather, and we watched together as Oscar sat in his car for over an hour before finally driving away. The next morning, we found our mailbox destroyed, the metal twisted and bent. The security camera had captured Oscar doing it with a baseball bat at 3:47 a.m. We filed a police report, but the officers seemed skeptical when we explained the family situation. Without more concrete evidence of actual harm, they said it was a civil matter. They'd talked to Oscar about the mailbox, but that was all they could do. The harassment escalated over the following days. Dead flowers appeared on our doorstep. Our car tires were slashed while we were at the grocery store. Someone called in a false welfare check on my grandparents, claiming elder abuse. Each incident was carefully planned to avoid leaving evidence pointing directly to Oscar. He always had an alibi, usually provided by our parents. They'd swear he was home watching movies or studying for his upcoming college classes. I started sleeping in shifts with my grandfather, one of us always awake to keep watch. We installed more cameras, better locks, even a panic button connected directly to the police. But Oscar was smart. He knew exactly how far he could push without crossing legal lines. Then came the day Grandma's new medication went missing, not just a few pills, but the entire bottle of her heart medication. The nurse swore she'd locked it in the medicine cabinet that morning, but by afternoon it was gone. We tore the house apart searching. Without those pills, Grandma could have another cardiac episode. The doctor called in an emergency prescription, but the pharmacy said it would take hours to fill. That's when I noticed Oscar's car in the parking lot of the pharmacy. He was just sitting there, watching, waiting. When he saw me spot him, he smiled and waved before driving off. I knew then that he wasn't going to stop. This wasn't about money or favoritism anymore. This was about control, about punishing us for daring to challenge him, and he was escalating. My grandfather and I decided to take matters into our own hands. We hired a second private investigator, one who specialized in difficult family situations. We needed someone who could watch Oscar without being detected, document his movements, catch him in the act. The investigator, Catherine, was a former police detective who'd seen her share of family disputes. She listened to our story without judgment, reviewed all our evidence, and agreed that Oscar was dangerous. She started surveillance immediately. Within a week, Catherine had documented Oscar following Grandma's nurse home, sitting outside her apartment for hours. She caught him on camera, purchasing large quantities of over-the-counter medications that, when combined, could be lethal. She tracked him to medical websites where he researched substance interactions under fake names. But the most disturbing discovery came when she followed him to a meeting with someone she recognized, a known substance dealer who specialized in prescription medications. Oscar handed over cash and received a small package in return. We wanted to go to the police immediately, but Catherine advised caution. We needed to catch him with the substances, prove intent to harm. She suggested we set a trap. The plan was simple. We'd announce that Grandma was going in for a routine checkup, that she'd be alone at the hospital for several hours while tests were run. In reality, she'd be safe at a friend's house while Catherine and another investigator waited at the hospital. Oscar took the bait. Catherine's cameras caught him entering the hospital with a small bag, heading straight for the room number we'd mentioned in the family group chat. But when he found it empty, he panicked. He called our parents, frantic, saying he'd gone to visit Grandma but couldn't find her. My mother called me immediately, screaming about how I'd endangered Grandma by moving her without telling anyone. I played dumb, saying she was exactly where we'd said she'd be. The confusion bought us time. Catherine followed Oscar as he searched the hospital, growing more agitated. Finally, he threw the bag in a medical waste bin and stormed out. Catherine retrieved it immediately. Inside were enough opioids to cause a fatal overdose. Now we had him. Real evidence of intent to harm. Catherine had documented the entire chain of events from the substance purchase to the hospital visit. We took everything to the police. But Oscar had one more card to play. That night, before the police could act, he showed up at our house with our parents. They demanded to be let in, saying they needed to talk. Against my better judgment, we opened the door. Oscar looked different. Calm, collected, almost serene. He sat down in the living room and announced that he'd been doing a lot of thinking. He wanted to apologize, to make things right. He even suggested family counseling. My parents backed him up, saying he'd come to them in tears, realizing how his behavior had torn the family apart. They wanted us to drop the police report, handle this as a family. My mother actually got on her knees, begging me to give Oscar another chance. But I saw through it. The way Oscar's eyes kept darting to Grandma, the way he positioned himself between her and the door, the way his hand kept going to his pocket. I excused myself to use the bathroom and called Catherine. She was already on her way, having been monitoring Oscar's movements. She told me to keep them talking, that police were en route. When I returned to the living room, Oscar was offering to make tea for everyone. A peace offering, he said. He insisted on using Grandma's special blend, the one that helped with her heart condition. Red flags went off in my mind. I watched as he prepared the tea in the kitchen, keeping his body angled so we couldn't see exactly what he was doing. When he brought the tray out, he made sure to hand Grandma her cup personally, his smile never wavering. Before she could take a sip, I knocked the cup from her hands. It shattered on the floor, tea splashing everywhere. Oscar's mask finally completely shattered. He lunged at me, screaming that I'd ruined everything, that Grandma was supposed to pay for turning our parents against him, that I was supposed to suffer for existing, for being born first, for making him have to work so hard for what should have been his. My father tried to pull him back, but Oscar shoved him aside with surprising strength. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a knife, not a large one, but sharp enough to do damage. That's when Catherine burst through the door with 2 police officers. Oscar spun toward them, the knife still in his hand. For a moment, everything froze. Then Oscar did something none of us expected. He laughed, a cold, hollow sound that made my skin crawl. He dropped the knife and raised his hands, still laughing. As the officers cuffed him, he looked directly at me and said 5 words that chilled me to the bone. "This isn't over, dear brother." The police took Oscar away, but the damage to our family was complete. My parents stood in our living room, looking lost and broken. The reality of what their golden child had become was finally undeniably clear. My mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Not for me, not for Grandma, But for Oscar, she kept saying there had to be an explanation, that this wasn't the son she knew. My father just stood there, aging years and minutes. Catherine had the tea tested. It contained a lethal dose of the opioids Oscar had tried to dispose of at the hospital. If Grandma had taken even a few sips, she would have been dead within hours. The police charged Oscar with attempted murder, possession of illegal substances, and stalking. The evidence was overwhelming, but even then, my parents hired him the best lawyer they could afford, draining their savings to defend the son who'd tried to kill his own grandmother. The family group chat exploded again. Those who defended Oscar were silent now, while others expressed shock and horror. Some blamed my parents for enabling him. Others blamed me for pushing him to this point. The family was shattered beyond repair, but in our house, a strange peace settled. Grandma was safe. The constant fear and paranoia could finally ease. We'd won, but the victory felt hollow. I'd lost my parents completely, and despite everything, that still hurt. Grandpa hired security for the house just in case. Oscar was out on bail, restricted to our parents' house with an ankle monitor. But we all knew this wasn't over. The trial would be brutal. The family drama played out in public. I spent the next days helping Grandma recover from the stress. Her heart condition had worsened from the constant fear, and she needed round-the-clock care. I moved into her room, sleeping on a cot beside her bed. One night, she took my hand and squeezed it weakly. She told me she was proud of me, that I'd saved her life. She also said something that surprised me. She felt sorry for Oscar, not for what he'd done, but for what he'd become. She believed our parents had created a monster by never telling him no, by making him believe he was entitled to everything, by teaching him that I was less than human, just an obstacle to his happiness. In trying to give him everything, they'd robbed him of empathy, of basic human decency. The truth of her words hit hard. Oscar wasn't born evil. He was shaped, molded, encouraged to be this way. And now we were all paying the price. Catherine stayed on as our security consultant, helping us prepare for the trial. She'd uncovered more evidence. Oscar had been planning this for months, maybe years. The journal entries were just the tip of the iceberg. She found online posts under fake names, where he'd asked for advice on inheritance law, on ways to make deaths look natural. She discovered he'd been in contact with others who'd successfully eliminated family members for money. He'd been studying, learning, preparing. The prosecutor was building a strong case, but Oscar's lawyer was good. They were painting him as a troubled young man who'd snapped under pressure, who needed help, not prison. They had character witnesses lined up, teachers and family friends who'd only seen his charming public face. My parents refused to speak to me, but I heard through family members that they were standing by Oscar. They visited him every day, bringing him home-cooked meals and books. They'd convinced themselves this was all a misunderstanding that would be cleared up at trial. Then, 3 weeks before the trial was set to begin, Oscar disappeared. The ankle monitor was found cut off in his bedroom, along with a note that simply said, "I'll be seeing you." My parents were hysterical, calling the police and insisting someone must have kidnapped him. But the security footage from their house showed Oscar walking out the front door at 4 a.m., carrying a backpack and looking perfectly calm. The police issued a warrant for his arrest, but Oscar had planned well. He'd emptied his bank accounts days before, sold his car to a private buyer for cash, and somehow gotten a fake ID. Catherine discovered he'd been researching countries without extradition treaties for weeks. My parents blamed me, of course. They showed up at our house, screaming that I'd driven Oscar to this, that I'd destroyed their family. My father actually tried to force his way inside, but the security guard Grandpa had hired stopped him. They left, threatening to sue us for emotional distress. For the next few days, we lived in a state of high alert. Every car that drove by slowly, every unexpected knock at the door, every strange noise at night had us on edge. Grandma barely slept, jumping at shadows. The stress was taking its toll on her already fragile health. Then the packages started arriving, small boxes with no return address containing photos of our house taken from different angles, pictures of me at the grocery store, images of Grandma through her bedroom window. Each one had a message written on the back in Oscar's handwriting. Still watching. Can't hide forever. Family first. Catherine traced the packages to different post offices across the state. Oscar was moving around, staying mobile, but he was also getting sloppy. One of the photos showed a reflection in a car window, a partial license plate that Catherine's contacts were able to track. The car belonged to a woman named Jaime, who'd reported it stolen a week earlier. But when Catherine dug deeper, she found that Jaime had been in contact with Oscar through a dating app. She'd probably given him the car willingly, another person charmed by his act. We were getting closer to finding him when disaster struck. I'd gone out to pick up Grandma's prescription, leaving her with the nurse and security guard. When I returned an hour later, the front door was wide open. The security guard was unconscious on the lawn, the nurse locked in the bathroom, and Grandma was gone. My hands shook as I called 911. The house was in chaos. Furniture overturned. Grandma's medications scattered across the floor. There were signs of a struggle in her room, her emergency alert button smashed to pieces. The police arrived within minutes, followed by Catherine and her team. They found chloroform residue on a cloth in the garden, tire tracks from a different vehicle than the stolen car. Oscar had help this time. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered on speaker so the police could hear. Oscar's voice was different now. No more pretending, no more little boy act, just cold calculation. He told me Grandma was safe for now, but that could change. He wanted the inheritance money that should have been his, all of it. And he wanted me to publicly admit that I'd forged all the evidence against him. The police tried to trace the call, but he was using a burner phone. He gave me 24 hours to get the money together and make the video confession, then hung up. Those were the longest 24 hours of my life. The police set up a command center in our living room. The FBI got involved since it was now a kidnapping case. My parents showed up, demanding to be included, still insisting Oscar wouldn't hurt anyone. Catherine worked her contacts while the official investigation proceeded. She had a theory. Oscar couldn't be doing this alone. Someone was helping him. Someone with experience. She started looking into the people Oscar had been chatting with online about inheritance schemes. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of my aunts, who'd been firmly in Oscar's camp, called me crying. She'd gotten a call from Oscar asking for money, threatening to hurt Grandma if she didn't comply. The mask had finally slipped for her too. She'd recorded the call. In the background, we could hear a woman's voice telling Oscar to hurry up. Catherine enhanced the audio and ran it through voice recognition. The woman was a known con artist named Evelyn, who specialized in elderly victims. With this lead, the FBI tracked their possible locations. Evelyn owned a cabin about 3 hours north, inherited from one of her victims. It was isolated, perfect for hiding someone. The rescue operation was planned for dawn. I wanted to go, but the FBI wouldn't allow it, so I waited at home with Grandpa, both of us pacing, unable to eat or rest. The call came at 7:23 a.m. They'd found Grandma. She was dehydrated and scared, but otherwise unharmed. Oscar and Evelyn had been arrested after a brief attempt to flee. The cabin had been full of evidence, more journals, detailed plans for other family members they'd planned to target, research on untraceable poisons. I broke down crying when I saw Grandma wheeled into the hospital. She was pale and shaky, but managed a weak smile when she saw me. She told me Oscar had ranted for hours about how unfair life had been to him, how he deserved everything, how I'd stolen his birthright by being born first. Evelyn, it turned out, had been coaching Oscar for months. She'd found him on those forums where he'd asked about inheritance law. She'd seen an easy mark, a young man with wealthy grandparents and a massive sense of entitlement. She'd taught him everything, planning to split the money once Grandma was gone. The trial was moved up. Oscar tried to claim Evelyn had manipulated him, that he was just a victim too. But the evidence was overwhelming. His journals, the videos, the testimony from multiple witnesses. Even my parents couldn't deny it anymore when they heard the recordings of Oscar coldly discussing how to make Grandma's death look natural. The day Oscar was sentenced, my parents finally broke. My mother approached me outside the courthouse, looking like she'd aged 20 years. She tried to apologize, but the words wouldn't come. My father just stood there, shoulders slumped, finally seeing what their favoritism had created. I wanted to forgive them. Part of me still craved their love, their approval. But Grandma's words echoed in my mind. They'd created this situation. They'd taught Oscar that I was less than human, that he was entitled to everything. Their tears now didn't erase 22 years of neglect. Oscar got 25 years. Evelyn got 30 due to her prior crimes. As they led him away, Oscar looked at me one last time. No more anger, no more threats, just emptiness. He'd lost everything, trying to take what was never really his. The family slowly began to heal, though it would never be the same. Some relatives apologized for not seeing the truth sooner. Others stayed away, too ashamed of their role in enabling Oscar. The family group chat was disbanded. Holiday gatherings became smaller, quieter affairs. My parents tried to rebuild their relationship with me, but I kept them at arm's length. They'd shown me who they were, and I couldn't forget. They ended up moving to another state, starting fresh where no one knew their story. I heard they volunteered with troubled youth now, trying to atone in their own way. Grandpa and Grandma officially adopted me. At 23, it might have seemed silly, but it meant everything. For the first time in my life, I had parents who chose me, who put me first. The inheritance they'd threatened to take from my parents became a trust fund for my future. I finished college debt-free thanks to my grandparents' support, got a job I loved, started therapy to deal with everything that had happened. Slowly, I built the life I'd always wanted, one where I was valued, where I mattered. Grandma's health improved once the stress was gone. She lived another 6 years, passing peacefully in her sleep at 91. At her funeral, I spoke about her strength, her wisdom, how she'd saved me as much as I'd saved her. Grandpa and I held each other as we said goodbye to the woman who'd shown me what real family meant. The house felt empty without her, but her presence lingered in every room. Grandpa and I kept each other company, 2 generations bound by shared trauma and mutual love. He taught me his business, preparing me to take over one day. We never spoke of Oscar, but sometimes I'd catch him staring at old family photos with a sadness I understood too well. Years later, I got a letter from Oscar in prison. He wrote about getting therapy, finally understanding what he'd done. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just wanted me to know he was trying to change. I never responded. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Life moved on. I met someone who understood my complicated relationship with family. We built our own traditions, our own definitions of love and loyalty. When we had kids, I made sure they knew they were equally cherished, equally valued. The cycle of favoritism ended with me. Sometimes I drive past my parents' old house, now sold to strangers. I remember the boy who just wanted to be loved, who kept hoping things would change. That boy deserved better, but he survived. He found his real family, and he learned that blood doesn't always mean love. Grandpa's still with me, though he's slowing down now. We take care of each other, the way family should. Every Sunday, we visit Grandma's grave together, bringing fresh flowers and updates about our lives. I tell her about my kids, my job, the normal life I've built from the ashes of our family's destruction. Oscar's due for parole in a few years. My lawyer says he'll likely be denied given the severity of his crimes. Part of me hopes he really has changed, that prison gave him the boundaries our parents never did. But I've also installed an excellent security system, just in case. Because that's the thing about family trauma. It never fully goes away. You just learn to live with it, to build something better despite it. Every holiday, every birthday, every family milestone carries the weight of what was and what could have been. But I'm okay now. Really okay. I have the family I chose, the life I built, the love I earned. And sometimes that's the best revenge of all. Not anger or bitterness, but simply living well despite everything they tried to take from you. The video I posted all those years ago still circulates sometimes, a viral reminder of how quickly family can fracture. People message me asking for updates, unable to believe it was real. I never respond. That chapter's closed now, even if the story continues. Because that's what survival looks like. Not a dramatic ending, but a quiet continuation. Waking up each day and choosing to be better than what shaped you. Building love where there was neglect. Creating family where there was only blood. And knowing that sometimes the best gift your parents can give you is showing you exactly who not to become.